bring in our think tank tonight. Maybe they'll actually agree with me tonight. Is that possible? We've got Steve Greenberg, great criminal defense attorney in Chicago, represents R. Kelly. Ecleynne Mercy in Atlanta, another great criminal defense attorney. Then down in Florida, Mark Eiglarsh with us as well. Steve, let me start with you. The bigger the trial, the more important it is to have transparency in cameras because the public needs to trust the results of these trials. And the only way you can trust is if you can see what's happening inside a courtroom.
Yeah, I actually think that the opposite might be true, that a small trial needs just as much coverage. They're all important. They all need transparency. And when you've got the small trials, that's where you get the bad results because things happen because people aren't watching it. But it scares me. It scares the crap out of me anytime a prosecutor starts an argument like they did today by saying, I'm looking out for the defendant's right. I want to protect the defendant. That should be the red flag right there. Now, I did a little research, and you've got Fremont, Idaho. You have a grand total of 13,000 people in Fremont, Idaho. About a quarter of them are under 18, so they're not going to be on the jury. You've got 8,000 or 9,000 people. I guarantee you that of those 8,000 or 9,000, 90% of them have been down to the corner store, talked about this case, know about this case, and that's not the standard anyway, whether you know about the case. The standard is whether you can put aside what you know about the case and decide the case just on the evidence you hear in the courtroom. Big publicity cases all over the place. They find jurors. They found them for OJ. They found them for Drew Peterson. I was involved in that. They'll find jurors here, even in Fremont County, although I suspect the case will end up in Boise.
Mark, do you agree?
I do. I'm shocked that the prosecutor doesn't want the cameras and the defense does. This is crazy. I would have also told you with certainty that the cameras would be let in. So when I'm looking at the prosecution's objection, I'm thinking, okay, yeah, there's the generic. I got that. It could affect the jury. Yeah, okay, whatever. We've heard that before. And then what's their next? Wait, that's it? That's all you got? Really, dude? That's it? So just like he said, look, Casey Anthony, Arias, Cosby, the list goes on and on. Jurors can say that they're going to set aside their preconceived notions of guilt or innocent. They could focus exclusively on the evidence and make their decisions. I think it's the right decision. Transparency is key.
Ecleynne, you know what's scaring me tonight is that it's turning into a pattern now. Because now we've got the prosecution in the George Floyd cases saying we don't want any video or audio inside those courtrooms either. That scares me when an arm of the state doesn't want transparency.
Absolutely. And I suspect it's going to keep happening. We have seen train wrecks of prosecutions happening often. We have seen prosecutors promise the world and get nothing. So I feel like in order to save, and then especially this case is crazy on its face. So, preliminary hearings is when, the state kind of tries to get their story together, tries to get tries to see how much crazy can they really release in this trial. You get a better gauge. In the prelim, you have the judge, you have the bailiffs, you have the prosecutor, you have the people in the galley. And because of COVID, we really can't do that now. So the state really doesn't have any, the state is like, okay, it's going to be in public view. Now it's COVID. Everybody, nothing else happens in Idaho. I'm sorry. The only thing I know about Idaho is potatoes and, of course, the daybells. So I'm thinking that they're just trying to get the heat off of them at this point and just, prevent the bleeding.
I'm sorry, but Vinny, what they're trying to do, what the prosecutor's trying to do here is they're trying to keep anyone from seeing what they're doing. And then later on, they want to jump in and they'll say, we're so concerned for the defense. We did everything we could. This is so see-through.
Maybe, Steve, but let me take the other side. The other side is prosecutors are thinking we want a conviction. We don't want this tried again. We want to minimize any kind of reversible error. Let's not let this get out there and be a trial in the court of public opinion. Stuff happens. We just want to contain this. Now, he didn't say those things, probably should have, and made more of an argument other than the generic. But I think that there's other factors at play. And I don't know. I'm with you. I think that he probably doesn't want the cameras in there because it doesn't favor the prosecution. But I'm not sure that he's not thinking about, well, I don't want this reversed.
But then with that being said,
You know,
I liked how the defense kind of played it. They never objected or, agree. They just said, it is what it is. The cats.
Why do they want cameras? I want everyone to tell me, why does the defense want cameras in there other than their 5 minutes of fame? Why do they really want the cameras?
They're fans of court TV.
But I also think I think that especially with the prelim,
that explains it.
That's just automatic impeachment evidence. Whatever crazy story that they're going to put out, if the prelim is public, you're stuck with it. You can't move from that. I think it's an Achilles heel. I think that they're kind of painting themselves
one more headline from today, guys. One more headline from today. And this would be, I thought, would be the strongest argument. Your Honor, we survived the end times, the end of the world last week. We can certainly survive with a camera inside the courtroom. How about Chad Daybell, not even embarrassed to show his face after his prophecy falls a little bit short in court, Mark?
Yeah, crazy.
Are they related? Are these two related?
I don't know their angle, but I'll tell you this. The local media is not going to say how innocent they are after this hearing. So it's only going to adversely affect the jury pool against the defense. I still don't understand what they're thinking. I'm dying to know why both defense attorneys are in favor of this.
What happens when you've got cameras in the courtroom is that people start playing to the camera. It's natural because you're more conscientious of it. And I'll tell you the biggest problem. First of all, the judge already had his decision made up because he read it when everyone was done arguing. It was already printed out. But it affects the judge more than anyone. That's been my experience when there's cameras in the courtroom. So. The judge is concerned. The judge has to go in the community. And the judge wants, especially a case like this, where these people are not popular, the judge wants to seem tough. It's going to hurt them.
All right.
And I think
when we come back, speaking of judges, there's a judge on the hot seat tomorrow. There's a sentencing for Danny Welty. And I'm wondering if the judge is going to feel any sympathy for this convicted murderer. Kills his wife on the day that they bury their son after he committed suicide. Oh, and his girlfriend also broke up with him on that day. We'll be right back.
I believe eye for an eye. I do want my taxpayer money to keep them alive for 20 years or whatever. But after talking to the prosecutor, he said, these kids, at a certain point in their life, they're going to ask him to write them a letter or something saying, what was you thinking? What was going through your head? Why did you do that to my mom? And I thought, I can't play God like that. So I changed it to life in prison without parole because of that. We're friends with his brothers and his family. I have no problems with them. They didn't do nothing. We talked to him. He came from a good family. His father was a pastor. So I don't wish him to die. I just want him to pay pay for his crime.
That is the brother of Echo Welty. She was shot and killed by her husband. He now is going to be sentenced tomorrow, Danny Welty. And the circumstances surrounding this case are horrific because their son had committed suicide and they had buried their son. But there's some other factors here, like Danny Welty, I guess they were estranged, husband and wife, because he had a girlfriend who broke up with him on the day that he ends up shooting his wife. So how does that play into all this as well? Ted Rollins has more for us tonight.
As to count one, we, the jury, find the defendant, Danny C. Welty, guilty of murder in the second degree as submitted in instruction number 7.
It took a jury less than 3 hours to find Danny Welty guilty of killing his wife. That verdict was exactly what Welty and his defense team was hoping for.
He was pleased that he is not going to go to prison for the rest of his life.
Welty was facing the possibility of first-degree murder and a mandatory life sentence, which is what prosecutors said he deserved for shooting his wife in a hotel parking lot.
In one shot to the back of the head, he shoots and kills Echo Welty.
Echo Welty was killed on November 17, 2016, just hours after her son's funeral. The couple had been struggling for months before their son, Danny Welty Jr., took his own life.
He dearly loved that boy.
Welty's lawyer said his client simply lost control amid the traumatic circumstances.
He was in a highly emotional state. He had been depressed, and he was not functioning like the Danny Welty who had lived for some 40 years.
The couple's adult daughter, Bethany Wellman, testified against her father. She was in the hotel while her parents argued outside.
My mom and Danny hadn't been on real speaking terms.
After the shooting, Welty called his daughter and apologized.
He said, "I ruined everything. First your brother, now your mother."
In a police interview, Welty said he went for his gun because he was angry with Echo and tired of arguing with her.
I'm so upset with her because when he took his life and they took him to Colombia, air flighted him to Colombia, she didn't call me. I had 2 other people call me instead of his mother.
How'd that make you feel?
Betrayed. Hurt. That they cost me, whether it was 5 minutes or 2 hours by his side. They cost me time with my son before he passed.
Welty was driving to a concert with his on and off girlfriend when he learned that his son had shot himself.
I knew how much he loved his children.
Amy Enschlager testified she told Welty the day of his son's funeral that they should take a break.
I said I feel like he needs to spend time with his family, be with his children, and really decide where he needs to be at this point. And it was just, there was so much loss and so much devastation, and it was hard to watch him.
The jury also heard from a hotel guest who saw Welty point his gun at his wife.
Was there anything out of the ordinary that caught your eye or your attention?
Yes, a woman that was screaming for help.
James Dykes managed to briefly intervene when Welty's gun jammed, but ultimately he could not stop him.
He left after I told him to leave, and that's whenever I grabbed a hold of her because she was wanting her keys, and then we was walking towards the door after I told her just go inside, and then the person ran beside me and from behind me, and then when I got closer, it was him, and he shot her in the back of the head.
Now, punishment is up to a judge. Welty faces anywhere between 10 years to life in prison.
We're going to argue that the defendant needs to be in prison for life on the murder 2 charge, that he deserves 20 years on the armed criminal action charge, and he'll have to do 85% of both those.
Welty's lawyer is hoping for leniency.
The Missouri legislature and the governor enacted a law with a minimum sentence of 10 years for this offense because it recognized that there would be people who were good people in other respects who committed the offense because they faced certain circumstances in their life that aren't likely to happen again, such as Danny Welty.
A lot of discretion for the judge, 10 to life, but I don't want to hear these arguments about his son. I don't want him using his son's suicide as a reason why he should serve less time in prison for shooting his wife in the back of the head, because by doing that, he devastated even more people and more lives, including his own daughter. Let's bring back in the think tank. Ecleynne, I think I'm going to start throwing things at the monitor if I start hearing these arguments that because his son took his own life, this guy should get some sympathy.
Better get your arm wound up.
You better, for both of us, Greenberg and I are not letting you off the hook on this one, but go ahead, start with her, and then you'll see what she has to say, and then you'll throw stuff at all of us. Go ahead, Vin.
So here's
Ecleynne, you're up.
So here's the stitch. So you have this man on the worst day of his whole entire life. He even testified that his wife robbed him of time with his son. It could have been a few minutes. It could have been hours. He was robbed. Now you have an argument. He just got dumped by his girlfriend that he actually liked. Now you have an argument on the day of his son's funeral by what? Suicide. And if they're that type of couple, the couple that I know, you can actually hear her voice constantly going off. She is going to perpetually blame him for the death of her son, and you can hear that. That's all he heard. That's all he could hang on to for the rest of his eternity, having to hear this woman blame him for the death of his son, and something snapped. So although you may not want to hear that argument, no normal person commits murder. No normal person shoots their wife in the back of the head. It is somebody in which something has broken, in which that actually happened. So I think that those arguments are very mitigating, and I think that they should be used, and that's all.
That's it. That was good, Vin. I think that she speaks for me and Greenberg, but I'll throw in some points here. Get ready to throw stuff. I don't care. Listen, let's start with what the defense attorney argued. There's a 10-year minimum up to life. Why is there a 10-year minimum? What does the legislators think would be a reason why somebody should get less than life? Oh, yeah, an isolated incident in an otherwise exemplary life. And we just heard so eloquently some of the mitigators that caused him to snap. The death of a son? You don't want to hear about it, Vinny? You better hear about it. That's probably one of the worst things that could happen. You're a father. You know, at a minimum, you wouldn't be the same person in that moment. I'm not saying you're shooting anybody. I'm just saying if you're being intellectually honest, you gotta recognize that you are emotionally not the right person. Secondly, his girlfriend dumps him. He was deprived an opportunity to see his son. His life was spiraling out of control. I would argue this is an isolated incident. He does need to do time. This is a serious offense. But life, I think there's a strong argument to be made that this could be on the lower end of that spectrum.
All right, hey, Steve, why don't you tell me why when he's chasing her down in the parking lot, it's on video, someone intervenes to stop him, yet he goes back, gets the gun, and then continues, and then shoots her where? In the back of the head, Steve, back of the head.
Well, he probably shot her in the back of the head because she was fleeing from him because she saw the gun. But I can't add anything to what they said. If you've been through a divorce, if you've been through the death of a child, and imagine all of those things, it's the worst possible day of your life. You're not thinking straight. You're not thinking clearly at all. I can't imagine. The only thing that you would be considering maybe other than that is you've got all that stress and you're blaming her just as she is blaming you, is to kill yourself. So I say this is the case. If ever there was a case for 10 years, this is it. Now, wind up.
Yeah.
Let's see you throw 3 balls at once.
This is what I'm going to throw at you. Bethany, the sister, you talk about worst day in your life? She's got to bury her brother, and then her mother gets shot by her father. That's the worst day. And that's what the judge should have in the front of his mind when he sentences
but nothing
this
the judge
murderer
Vinny,
tomorrow.
Vinny, nothing the judge is going to do is going to bring back mom. Nothing the judge is going to do is going to bring back the son. And
Never
frankly,
does. It's
once
called
he
justice.
goes packing away,
Hold on.
once the dad
Steve,
goes
we
off
gotta
to
defend
jail,
Vinny. Vinny, Vinny makes a very good point. We will defend you on that. No, stop throwing, because hold on, I'm defending you. Yes, I think that the impact that it had on the sister is a factor. That's all. We'll give you that.
She's not going to feel any better. She's going to go on with her life. She's going to get over it.
All right.
And it's just really retribution at this point.
We got to go. We got to go. We got to go. Sentencing is tomorrow, folks. When we come back, we're going to switch gears a little bit. We're going to talk about the Royals and paparazzi. Try to lighten things up a little bit.
Welcome back to Court TV Live. I'm Julia Janae with your Court TV news break. Just in today, the Attorney General's office prosecuting in the George Floyd murder case says they don't want cameras for any trial, which would include a jury trial if that happens in the future. This issue came up at a hearing last Tuesday. The 4 former officers who are defendants in the case want audio and visual coverage of the trial, saying they believe it will enhance a fair trial. The judge asked the Attorney General's office to confirm in writing whether they will agree to cameras going forward. And in a filing today, Assistant Attorney General Matt Frank says they will not consent, which by default could mean the judge will also have to deny camera access per Minnesota law, which requires an agreement between the parties. Over a month ago, the defense attorney for Tou Thao had this to say when the prosecution first opposed cameras at the pretrial hearings.
I find it ironic that the Attorney General's office and the rest of the public officials who've been commenting publicly on this case and leaking sensitive information now want to keep the trial not open to the public.
A final decision from Judge Cahill on this and a separate issue of releasing body camera footage is still pending in the case. And in New York, the former lawyer for President Trump is a free man again. And this is after a revolving door scenario that he's been under the last few months with the system. Michael Cohen was released from federal prison on Friday. He initially received an early release in May during attempts to slow the spread of coronavirus. Then earlier this month, he landed back behind bars over a conditions violation when he was photographed eating out at a restaurant. His attorney says he thought he was still within the area of his home as required. Now, a judge has agreed to let Cohen out of prison, but not because of the dinner issue. Judge Alvin Hellerstein says the July 9th decision by prosecutors to send him back to prison was government retaliation and a violation of Cohen's First Amendment rights. The judge is referring to a tell-all book Cohen is writing, highlighting his former client, President Trump. It's expected to be released in September. That's it for your Court TV News Break. Vinny, back to you.
Julie Janae, thanks so much. Appreciate it. So, Harry and Meghan, the Dutch and what are they? The Duke and the Duchess of York have filed a lawsuit in Los Angeles going after the paparazzi for some photos. Julie Grant has the story tonight.
The Duke and Duchess of Sussex are taking on the Hollywood paparazzi. The royal couple alleging their privacy was invaded when photos of their son, Prince Archie, were taken in their backyard without their permission. After officially stepping away from their royal duties in March, Prince Harry and actress Meghan Markle moved to Los Angeles. July 23rd, the couple filed suit after a paparazzi photo of their 14-month-old son, purportedly taken on a family outing in Malibu, was being shopped to media outlets. The lawsuit says baby Archie has never been to Malibu, and the photo was taken in the couple's backyard.
The relief that's available and the relief they're looking for might be two different things. They might be just filing this lawsuit as kind of a warning shot to anyone who's looking to potentially buy these photographs, that if you buy this photograph, you're going to be buying a lawsuit and you're going to be named as a defendant as one of these does.
According to the lawsuit, paparazzi and media outlets have flown drones as low as 20 feet above their home to try to take pictures of the Duke and Duchess and royal baby Archie.
Well, the law says you can't use a drone or any kind of electronic gadget, such as a telephoto long-distance lens, to invade someone's privacy in a way that discloses private, intimate gatherings in your home. It'll be up to a judge to decide whether or not what happened here offends reasonable norms in terms of what happened.
The lawsuit details some of the other privacy struggles the royals have faced. They say they were forced to put up a large mesh fence to guard against telephoto lenses, and that helicopters fly over their home as early as 5:30 a.m. on a regular basis, waking baby Archie and disturbing their neighbors. Whether the suit will be successful depends.
I know a lot of people that have drones and use them as hobbies, and they have cameras attached. And if you put that drone where it doesn't belong and take pictures of people in a compromising or private position, you could be civilly liable for trouble, damages, and penalties.
This case could serve as a good legal lesson for anyone taking pictures with a drone.
If they can find the names of the people who did this, because right now they've sued 100 Doe defendants, which are fictitious defendants, but they can find out who actually did it and get a court order, a restraining order, before the photos are distributed to the internet or published, then they can win. But it's possible the photographs will be distributed on the internet before they find out who did this.
Among other things, the Duke and Duchess are looking to discover the identities of the photographers and to put on notice anyone who may be seeking to purchase or publish those pictures.
All right, let's bring back in the think tank and someone who has a lot of experience with all this. Mark Eiglarsh, how do you deal with the paparazzi who can't contact you on your website, Speak to Mark, so they fly the drone, speaktomark.com, they fly the drones over the backyard to see you sunning yourself in South Florida?
First of all, that was a brilliant plug for speaktomark.com, and I thank you for that. But let me get serious for a minute. I really do think that this is outrageous and offensive behavior. And what that attorney in the last piece left out is that this isn't just a civil matter. This, to me, is a criminal matter. And I'm putting on my former prosecutor hat now. January in 2014, thanks to celebrities like Jennifer Gardner, who really put their efforts into this, they passed a law that made it a criminal act to take photographs of children in an alarming or an annoying way. There's other language there, like terrorizes the child or everything, but as long as it's alarming and annoying, and it sounds to me, when the drone's getting 20 feet from your house, when the helicopter's coming at 5:30 in the morning, I'd like to see some of these people criminalized. I'd like to see them arrested for their actions.
Steve?
I don't know if it's a criminal thing. I don't see that. I would think a lot of different ways you could challenge that law if people are out in public. But the real question is, were they out in public or were they at their home? In California, there's very strict privacy laws on what you can do. And let's face it, just because a drone can go over your house, it's still your private space, and they shouldn't be doing it. I think it's a warning shot that they're filing this lawsuit. They want to send a message to people. They've got a lot of resources. They've got a very sympathetic public. And let's face it, keep the kids out of it.
Absolutely, I agree. And Ecleynne, I got my royal stuff all mixed up. It's the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, not York. Were you surprised that I got that wrong?
I didn't know it. I'm sorry. I didn't know it. I didn't know it, friend. I would not have gotten it right on Jeopardy. I did not know that. I am so sorry.
All right, we will move on. When we come back, folks, time to hear from the 13th juror. Your reaction today as you were watching the hearing out in Idaho involving Lori Vallow Daybell and her husband, Chad. A lot of comments and questions, interesting stuff. We'll take a look at what you had to say next.
My name is Judge Edens. The court is calling case number CR 2220-755, State of Idaho versus Chad Guy Daybell, as well as CR 2220-838, State of Idaho versus Lori Noreen Vallow, now known as Lori Noreen Daybell. Present here in the Zoom hearing, I have Mr. Daybell present with his attorney, Mr. John Pryor. I have Mr. Wood, who represents the state in both matters. I also have Mr. Means, who represents Ms. Daybell.
All right, so the state argued against having cameras in the courtroom for the prelim. Both defense attorneys said, yeah, let the cameras in, and the judge agreed with them. So Court TV will be providing that coverage for you. And again, it'll begin next week, Monday and Tuesday for Chad Daybell, then the following week for Lori Vallow Daybell. So a lot happening out in Idaho in the midst of all this. Now, your reaction on social media tonight. We begin with our 13th juror comment of the day coming from Keith, who says, the community where this happened have a right to know everything. Let's bring in the think tank. Steve Greenberg, is there anything that the public doesn't have a right to know?
Well, constitutionally, trials are public. The public has a right to know everything. Now, how that information rolls out, at what time frame they learn certain facts, is something that I think you still need to watch out for. So you can't, I'm not someone who's in favor, for instance, of dumping all the video like they do these days, or dumping all the police reports in a freedom of information request so everyone learns it. But the public absolutely has a right to know, and if technology permits the eyes of the public to look into a courtroom, then they have that right.
Steve, tonight they are obviously having trouble linking them to the actual murders, talking about Chad and Lori Daybell. Sad, hiring Lori's brother, and now he's dead, may keep them from being charged with murder. Ecleynne Mercy, do you think there's a chance here that this is as far as it goes, the current charges dealing with obstruction of justice, lying to police, the evidence, the remains in the backyard? Do you think they both escape murder charges here?
Well, I don't know about escaping murder charges, but, the move for the prosecutor before a prelim to try to get no cameras in the room kind of, will put some red flags up there. Like, what are you trying to hide, or what don't you have? I think that we have a case of the prosecution promising the world and not being able to deliver. So I think that that's what they're trying to do in an attempt to avoid embarrassment or going back to, investigation, because murder has no statute of limitations, instead of just, going back to investigations, and the shoddy one at that. They're just trying to prevent embarrassment, and I think that that's not a good thing. That's not the move.
Jackie writes, I'm confused. Why does the defense want it a public trial and the prosecution want it not public? You would think it would be the other way around. And then there's this emoji at the end that's kind of like this. It's the Home Alone emoji, kind of like this. Anyhow, Mark, why? Can you answer the question?
I can't. I was the one who raised the question earlier, quite frankly. I do want to comment, though, on that last thing that we heard. There's this little case in Florida that you might not have heard about. Her name was Casey Anthony, right? Yes. And we all knew that she had done something to cause her child's tragic demise. But what was missing was exactly how. Was it first-degree murder? Was it second? Was it manslaughter? And that's why jurors had tears in their eyes when they had to say not guilty, because they knew she was guilty. That case is kind of like analogous to this case, because everyone knows they likely played a role in some way. I think the court of public opinion believes that, but the prosecutors just don't seem to have it.
Debbie tonight, these two criminals should not be allowed to make any deals. Give them the needle. We want justice for the children and the others that they had killed. Steve,
give them the needle.
Is this a death penalty case?
What?
No. Death penalty. Idaho. Two children dead, if in fact they're charged with murder.
So I think that Debbie has just now eliminated herself from the jury pool, and she can now watch all the TV she wants of this trial, since she can't be fair and impartial. I agree with Mark. The problem that you've got here is that you don't know the whole story. You don't know what ultimately happened. Do I think they did it? Sure, because they didn't act like people whose children were missing. They went off to Hawaii to have a Hawaiian luau and vacation. So we all know that they probably did it, but they don't have the goods. And to say that they should give them the needle, let them sit in prison if they're found guilty of murder for the rest of their lives and think about what they did.
April, should be public, live stream. It's our courthouse. Well stated, April. I agree 10,000% with you. Let me go to the next comment from Liz, who writes, the prosecutor is smart. By doing this, the lawyers can't come back and say unfair trial because of publicity. Is that the end game, maybe, Mark?
That is a smart person. Liz Parsons, I like that argument. Yeah, I think that is definitely one of the arguments that gets off the table. It's rare that would succeed anyway, but just to take that off the table, that's a possibility. I think it's more to it. I don't think that's the only factor here.
Gabriel, world didn't end, crazy lady. Life sentence for both of you. Ecleynne, we only have a few seconds here, but do you think things have changed? I mean, I looked at Chad today, and I didn't see any egg on his face, but he should have been a little embarrassed, shouldn't he have been?
But you know what? Who wasn't there? Lori. Lori said, keep all of that, and I'm not going to participate on the day after Doomsday. So although Chad was there, staunch, I'm actually happy that Lori wasn't there. I'm happy she wasn't there.
Could be trouble in paradise. Steve Greenberg, Ecleynne Mercy, Mark Eiglarsh, speaktomark.com. Thank you all so much. Great having you on the program. That'll do it for tonight, folks. As always, we are here every night from 8 to 11 p.m. taking you places that no other network will take you, inside the world of crime and justice. We'll be back tomorrow, another big day. As always, have a wonderful night, and don't forget to hug your kids.